The screech of tires ripped through the quiet afternoon like a scream. Margaret Chen's designer heels clicked against the marble steps of the Grand Meridian Hotel in Abuja. Her phone pressed to her ear, negotiations flowing smoothly about the Kano textile merger. The sun beat down on her shoulders, hot and insistent. 3 steps from the curb. 2. 1. "Watch out!" The voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Before Margaret could turn her head, rough hands slammed into her shoulders, hard. She flew sideways, her body airborne for one impossible heartbeat, and then crashed onto the hotel's stone planter. Her phone shattered against concrete. Her knee split open. Pain shot through her ribs like lightning. A black sedan roared past exactly where she had been standing, so close the wind from it lifted her hair. The car didn't slow, didn't brake, just vanished around the corner like a predator that had missed its kill. Margaret gasped, lungs screaming for air. The world spun in dizzy circles. Voices erupted around her. Hotel staff rushed forward, hands reaching. A security guard shouted into his radio, his voice sharp with alarm. But Margaret's eyes found him first, the man who pushed her. He sat crumpled against the planter's edge, breathing hard. His clothes hung loose and faded. A gray shirt with holes near the collar, trousers patched with mismatched fabric that spoke of years spent finding ways to survive. His feet were bare, dusty, scarred with 1,000 hard miles. Her hair needed cutting, her beard needed trimming, but his eyes were sharp and clear, watching her with something between concern and resignation. "Madam, are you hurt?" A hotel manager materialized, wringing his hands. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "This man, he saved my life," Margaret whispered. The manager hesitated, glancing at the homeless man with obvious discomfort. His nose wrinkled slightly. "Yes, well, security will escort him away from the premises." "No!" Margaret's voice came out stronger now. She pushed herself up, ignoring the blood trickling down her shin. Pain was temporary. Death was permanent. "What's your name?" she asked. "Thomas," he said it simply, without bowing or scraping. "Thomas Okoro." Thomas. She tested the name on her tongue. "How did you know the car was coming?" He glanced toward the street, then back at her. "I've been watching this hotel for 2 days. That same black car circled 3 times this morning, twice yesterday evening. Each time it slowed when you walked out. Today it didn't slow, it accelerated." Ice flooded Margaret's veins. "You were watching me?" "Not you," Thomas said quietly. "The car. I saw patterns. I was a data analyst once. Patterns are what I know, what I've always known." The hotel manager shifted uncomfortably. "Madam Chen, perhaps we should call the police." "Yes," Margaret said, still locked on Thomas's face. "Call them. I want a full report. That car tried to kill me." As staff scattered to obey, Margaret limped closer to Thomas. Her knee screamed in protest, but she ignored it. Pain was temporary. Death was permanent. "You said you were a data analyst once. What happened?" Thomas's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke, words measured and careful, like a man who had learned that every syllable could be used against him. "I worked for a tech firm in Lagos. I found discrepancies in the company's financial software, money disappearing into accounts that shouldn't exist. When I reported it, they said I was the one stealing. My own supervisor testified against me. By the time the truth came out 2 years later, I had nothing. No job, no home, no family who wanted to claim a man accused of theft." Margaret's throat constricted. She knew that kind of betrayal. The business world was full of knives disguised as handshakes, poison wrapped in smiles. Before she could respond, her head of operations, Linda, burst through the hotel doors, face pale with panic. "Margaret, I just heard. Are you okay?" "I'm alive, thanks to him." Linda's eyes flicked to Thomas, then away, as if looking too long might be dangerous or contagious. "The police are on their way. Security footage shows the car had no license plates. This wasn't an accident." "I know," Margaret said softly. The words settled like stones in her stomach. Someone wanted her dead. The question was who? And more terrifyingly, why now? Her rival, Victor Adebayo, had fought her tooth and nail over the textile merger. Meetings had turned hostile. Lawyers had exchanged threats disguised as legal correspondence. But attempted murder? That seemed too bold even for him. Unless desperation had made him reckless. Thomas cleared his throat. "Madam, I should go. The police won't want to see someone like me hanging around when they arrive." "Wait!" Margaret grabbed his arm without thinking. His skin was warm, real, human. His eyes searched hers, as if trying to understand why a woman like her would care what happened to a man like him. "I need your help, Margaret," said, pushing herself with the words even as they left her mouth. "If someone's trying to kill me, I need someone who sees patterns, someone who notices what others miss." Thomas shook his head slowly. "I am nobody. You have security teams, bodyguards. Who might be compromised?" Margaret interrupted. "That car knew exactly when I'd be walking out. It knew my schedule down to the minute." The words hang between them, sharp and terrible. Thomas exhaled long and slow. "If what you are saying is true, then you are in more danger than you realize." "I know. That's why I need you," Margaret said. The police arrived in a storm of sirens and questions. Margaret answered mechanically, her mind racing ahead to darker possibilities. She watched as officers took Thomas's statement, their eyes skeptical, their questions clipped and dismissive, as if his observations meant less because of the clothes he wore. But Margaret heard what they didn't: the precision in his observations, the way he recalled exact times, exact details, the make and model of the car, the pattern of its circling. This was a man whose mind worked like a machine, even when the world had ground him into dust. When the police finally left, unconvinced and unhelpful, promising to investigate but offering no real hope, Margaret made a decision that would change everything. "Thomas," she said, "come with me." He blinked. "Where?" "Somewhere safe. My compound in my Tama. You'll have a room, food, and a job if you want it." "A job?" His voice cracked slightly, as if the word itself had become foreign. "Security consultant," Margaret said. "Someone tried to kill me today. I need someone I can trust. Someone who has nothing to gain by betraying me." Thomas stared at her for a long moment. Then, quietly, he said, "Why would you trust a homeless man you just met?" Margaret smiled, though it hurt her split lip. "Because you didn't have to push me. You could have walked away, but you didn't." That night, Margaret's sprawling compound felt less like a sanctuary and more like a cage. Armed guards patrolled the high walls topped with electric wire. Cameras tracked every movement with unblinking eyes, recording everything, seeing nothing that mattered. Yet Margaret couldn't shake the cold certainty that danger had already slipped inside, quiet as smoke, patient as death. Thomas sat across from her in the study, freshly showered, wearing clothes borrowed from her late husband's wardrobe. The shirt hung slightly loose on his frame, but he looked different now. Younger, less like a ghost and more like a man reclaiming his shape in the world. His beard was trimmed, his hair washed. The transformation was startling. Her 12-year-old daughter, Grace, peeked around the doorframe, brown eyes wide with curiosity. She had been at her friend's house when the attack happened, spared from witnessing her mother's near death. "Mama, who is he?" Margaret smiled gently. "Someone very brave.
He saved my life today." Grace stepped into the room, her curiosity stronger than her shyness. She had her father's fearlessness, the quality Margaret both admired and worried about daily. "Really? How?" Thomas glanced at Margaret, unsure. She nodded, giving him permission. "There was a car coming," Thomas said carefully, choosing words a child could understand. "I pushed your mother out of the way." Grace's eyes went wide. "Like a superhero!" Despite everything, Thomas smiled. It softened the hard lines around his mouth, erasing years of suffering for just a moment. Not quite. Just someone who happened to be paying attention. Grace tilted her head, studying him with the brutal honesty of children who haven't yet learned to lie with their eyes. "You don't look like a superhero. You look like you've been sad for a long time." Thomas's smile faded. "You're right. I have been." "Are you still sad?" Grace asked. He looked at Margaret, then back at Grace. "A little less today than yesterday." "That's good," Grace said. Simply, "Mama says it's okay to be sad sometimes. It means you loved something enough to hurt when it's gone." Thomas's eyes glistened. He nodded, unable to speak. But Margaret's phone shattered the fragile piece. The screen lit up with an unknown number, the digits unfamiliar and threatening. Her pulse quickened. She glanced at Thomas, who straightened immediately, alert, his whole body tensing. She answered. "You were lucky today." The voice was distorted, mechanical, stripped of anything human. "Next time, you won't be. Walk away from the Kano deal or your daughter pays the price." The line went dead. Margaret's hand trembled. The phone slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the mahogany desk. The sound echoed in the sudden silence, impossibly loud. Thomas was on his feet instantly, crossing the room in 3 strides. "What did they say?" She couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Her eyes found Grace, still standing in the doorway, innocent and unaware of how close death had come to their door. "They threatened Grace," Margaret whispered, and the words tasted like ash in her mouth. Thomas's expression hardened into something fierce and protective. He moved to the window, scanning the grounds below with the intensity of a predator searching for prey. His eyes moved in patterns, methodical, missing nothing. "Then we can't stay here," Thomas said, still watching the darkness outside. "If they know your schedule, they know your home, they might know your security codes, your guard rotations, everything." Margaret's mind reeled. The walls that had always protected her felt like prison bars, trapping her inside with a target on her back. "Where do we go?" "Somewhere they won't expect," Thomas said, still watching the darkness outside. "Somewhere off the grid." Margaret looked at Grace, then at Thomas. "Can you keep us safe?" "I can try," Thomas said, "but we need to move now."
Within the hour, they fled. Not in Margaret's bulletproof Mercedes with its tinted windows and reinforced frame, but in a borrowed taxi, yellow and beaten, driven by Thomas's old friend from the streets, a man named Chidi who asked no questions and drove with the skill of someone who knew every back road in Abuja, every shortcut, every escape route the world never knew existed. Grace clutched her mother's hand in the back seat, confused and frightened. Margaret held her close, feeling her daughter's heartbeat against her side, fast and fragile, whispering promises she prayed she could keep. They arrived at a modest apartment in Nyanya, far from the glittering towers of Maitama, where wealth insulated itself from the world's rougher edges. The building was old, paint peeling like sunburned skin, but solid. Iron bars protected the windows. The door had 3 locks. Chidi unlocked them all and gestured them inside with a small nod. "Stay as long as you need," he said to Thomas. "I owe you that much." When the door closed,
The silence felt crushing, absolute. Margaret sank onto a worn couch, Grace in her lap. The girl had finally stopped asking questions, exhausted by fear and confusion. Thomas stood by the window again, a sentinel who never rested, always watching. "I need to know who is behind this," Margaret said, her voice raw, stripped of the polished confidence she wore in boardrooms. "I need proof." Thomas turned. In the dim light from the street lamp outside, his face looked carved from stone. "Then we set a trap." "What kind of trap?" Margaret asked. "The kind where we give them what they think they want and catch them when they come for it." Over the next 2 days, they planned. Margaret would leak false information through Linda that she was meeting secretly with government officials to finalize the Kano deal. The meeting location, an old warehouse in Jabi Lake, abandoned for years, forgotten by everyone who had nowhere else to go. The time? Midnight, when shadows ruled and decent people slept safely in their beds. It was reckless, dangerous, but Margaret was done running, done hiding, done letting fear dictate her life. Grace asked questions at first. Why couldn't she go to school? Why did they have to hide? Why did the apartment smell funny? Margaret held her daughter's face between her hands and told her the truth, simplified but honest. "Some people don't want Mama to succeed, but we're going to stop them, and then we'll go home." "Is Thomas going to help?" Grace asked. "Yes," Margaret said. "He is." "Good," Grace said, simply. "I like him. He doesn't pretend everything is okay when it's not." On the night of the trap, Margaret stood inside the warehouse, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The air smelt of rust and old rain, of forgotten industry and broken dreams. Grace was safe, hidden at Chidi's sister's house across the city, protected by people who owed Thomas their lives in ways Margaret was only beginning to understand. Thomas stood beside her, calm despite the storm brewing. He had changed into dark clothing that helped him disappear into shadows. His eyes moved constantly, calculating, reading the space like a text only he could understand. Police officers, dressed as warehouse workers in coveralls and hard hats, waited in the darkness, invisible to anyone who didn't know where to look. The first headlight appeared, cutting through the night like knives. Then a second set, black sedans, just like the one that had tried to run her down days ago. Men emerged, armed and masked, moving with military precision. And at the center, unmistakable even in the dim light, was Linda, Margaret's head of operations, her right hand for 7 years, the woman she had trusted with contracts, with confidential information, with access to her life. Margaret's breath caught. Not Victor Adebayo, not a rival from outside, her own employee, someone she had promoted, mentored, trusted. "Bring her out," Linda ordered coldly, her voice carrying across the empty space. Thomas stepped forward into the light, placing himself between Margaret and the guns. "If you want her, you go through me first." Linda laughed, sharp and cruel, the sound of something broken trying to cut. The homeless man playing hero. How touching, how utterly pointless. She raised her gun, the barrel catching the moonlight. "Did you really think this would work? Did you think I wouldn't know it was a trap?" "I knew you'd know," Thomas said calmly. "That's why you came. Pride always comes before the fall." Linda's face twisted. "You don't know anything about me." "I know you sold out a good woman for money," Thomas said. "I know because I've seen your type before. The ones who smile while sharpening their knives." "Drop your weapons! Police, now!" Floodlights exploded to life from every direction, turning night into blazing day. Police swarmed from behind crates, from doorways, from vehicles hidden in the darkness. Dozens of them, rifles raised, voices shouting commands that echoed off the metal walls. Chaos erupted. Gunfire cracked the air. Men scattered like insects, exposed by an overturned stone. Linda spun towards the exit, but Thomas lunged, tackling her to the concrete. They struggled, fierce and desperate, two bodies locked in combat. "You sold her out," Thomas roared, his voice carrying pain that went beyond this moment. "Why?" Linda spat in his face, her features twisted with rage and something darker. "Because Victor offered me millions. Because women like Margaret think they can have it all while people like me walk in their shadow. Someone had to take her down. Someone had to show her she's not untouchable." Thomas's fist connected with her jaw and she went limp. Within minutes, it was over. Linda and her accomplices were in handcuffs, being loaded into police vans. Margaret stepped out from behind the armored barrier, legs shaking but head high. Blood rushed in her ears. She was alive. Grace was safe. It was over. Thomas rose, breathing hard, blood on his knuckles from where they had connected with Linda's face. Their eyes met across the warehouse floor, in the strange stillness after violence. "You saved me again," Margaret said softly. Thomas shook his head. "You saved yourself. I just helped clear the path." Weeks later, the Cannot textile deal went through. Margaret stood at the signing ceremony in a crisp white suit. Cameras flashing like stars, reporters shouting questions she answered with practiced ease. But her speech wasn't about business metrics, or profit margins, or quarterly projections. It was about second chances. Today, I'm announcing the launch of the Fresh Start Initiative, a foundation to help those society has forgotten, those who fell through the cracks, not because they failed, but because the system failed them. Because one of those people saved my life, and in return, he gave me something more valuable than any deal, any merger, any amount of money. He gave me back my faith in humanity. The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of sound that washed over her. That evening, Margaret found Thomas at the foundation's new headquarters, his office overlooking the city. He wore a suit now, navy blue with a white shirt, clean-shaven, his hair cut sharp. The transformation was remarkable, but his eyes remained the same, watchful and kind. But when he saw her, he smiled the same quiet smile from the day they met outside the hotel. "Security consultant, director of operations. I never thought I would have a title again. Never thought anyone would see past what I had become. You earned it. You earned all of it." Grace ran in, launching herself at Thomas. He caught her, laughing, spinning her around like an uncle might, like family. The girl shrieked with delight, her earlier fear forgotten in the simple joy of safety. Margaret watched them, her heart full in a way she hadn't since her husband died. The homeless man who had pushed her away from death had pushed her toward life, toward trust, toward something she thought she'd lost forever in the grinding machinery of ambition and survival. Hope. Thomas set Grace down gently and met Margaret's eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for seeing me when I'd stopped seeing myself." "Thank you," Margaret replied, "for not letting me die." They stood together in the office as the city lights flickered on below, as Abuja transformed from day to night, as the world continued its endless turning. And somewhere in that vast city, people began to tell a story. About a billionaire who didn't just say thank you, who gave a second chance to the man who gave her a second life. About a push that changed everything.
Hit subscribe if you believe betrayal should never win, no matter how powerful the person behind it is. Only people like Linda, smiling in your face while plotting your downfall, would watch a story like this and walk away. Don't be like her. Subscribe if you stand for loyalty. And if you believe people like Thomas deserve a second chance, comment justice always wins. Don't side with people who destroy lives for greed.
So yeah, thank you so much for watching, you guys. Please tell me what you feel about this story and where you're watching from in the comment section. Like this video, share to your friends so they can also learn from this story. Please do not forget to subscribe to this channel and tap on the notification bell so every time I upload a video, you're going to know and you come support your girl. Thank you so much, my YouTube family. See you guys on my next story. Tell me your experience in the comment section. Thank you.